Great day, AMP family. I pray that this finds you well. It's a beautiful day in DC. Hope everybody's doing amazing. Hope you're having a wonderful day. It is just a all around beautiful day. As always, before we get this thing started, make sure that you take a second, like the video. Make sure you stop and subscribe if you haven't already. Send it to somebody, share it with somebody, tell somebody about the AMP family, and join the most lit family on YouTube. Let's be completely honest. The AMP family is where it is. All right, so I just wanted to stop in and talk to you about something that recently happened to me. And you all may laugh, but at the same time, you also may not laugh because it's somewhat serious, but you all know me. Look, at the end of the day, I just want to make sure that other people are encouraged. So recently, my dad approached me and was like, "Hey son, I had a dream about you." And I was like, "Okay, Dad, what did you dream about?" Now, if you know my dad doesn't usually go out of his way, if you will, to tell people about his dreams or things of that nature. "Hey son, is there something that you're supposed to be doing that God has called you to do and you're kind of hesitant and not doing it yet?" And I was like, "Dad, there's a number of things that God called me to do that I'm working on or working very slowly on because I'm hesitant and can't necessarily see it. If you know me and you know me well, you know that I am an overthinker. I think about everything. I think about the pros, cons, details, and so forth. And it's very rare that I jump into something immediately without thinking about it at all. There are some occasions where I do that, but it's not my normal, right? And so with that being said, it's one of those things where when Dad said, "Hey, let's talk about this," and so we're breaking this down, and I'm like, "Well, Lord, Dad, I'm trying to do this. I'm doing this. God, impressed on me to do these 4 things. And some of them I'm taking my time to get done with. Some I'm hesitant on." And he's like, "And so are they bigger than you?" I'm like, "Most of the things that God puts in my heart to do are significantly bigger than me. And I don't know how they're going to all get done, but I trust God, right? And I still trust God." And for me, it's one of those things that in this walk that we are all in, right? In this existence to do what we're purposed for, one of the challenges is understanding that it is not all on you to get the things done, especially if it's something that God has called you to do. And so fast forward to today when I'm recording this. I had the opportunity to speak to one of my other believers who has recently kind of become someone present in my life and manager, right? And so in our conversations, like, "So how's your spirit today?" And I was like, "Oh, in my mind, I'm like, I'm in a good place. I'm doing well." There were some things that I had seen prior that morning where it was just like, that kind of set me off a little bit, but it wasn't anything significant to where I couldn't just talk about it, right? And so I mentioned it to him. And, then I was reminded of what God said about, being in some boxes. Like, we've put ourselves in some boxes at times where we expect ourselves to fit in that box when God has totally created us not to fit in that box. We've done that with family members. We've done that with other people, knowing that they have some power, if you will, quote unquote, but we've limited ourselves to only that box because we couldn't see how anything else was possible. And so God reminded me of that same thing. It's like, "Hey, why are you trying to put yourself in a box where other people fit because that's where they fit, whereas you may never fit in those boxes? And if you do, it's only because you decided to step into it after the fact." And so I was just like, okay. And so I'm contemplating this, and I'm beating myself up a little bit because of some work that I was working on that didn't pan out, but then they had something else created within the lines of what I was already creating. And it was just like, okay, well, what in the world is going on? So fast forward to this conversation that I'm having with my manager person, and it was one of those confirmations that you didn't know that you needed, right? And that's why it's so important, because I found myself having this conversation and explaining this, and one of the things that came up is giving yourself grace. Sometimes we have to give ourselves grace, even in the times where God has given us something to do, and everything isn't lining up because we haven't moved from where He has told us to do. Both her and my dad said the same thing, in the sense of, hey, have you started doing what God has called you to do? If you know that this is the project that you're supposed to be working on, have you started working on it? Have you started putting the proposal together? Have you started doing the thing that God put you in line to do? And I'm like, oh, well, you know what? It's still kind of sitting. I haven't really picked it up. I've done some talking to some people, but I haven't really picked it up. And so it's like, why haven't you done that first breadcrumb or step A to get to the rest of them? It's like, well, I mean, you limit what you're doing because you're falling behind in your faith in what God has called you to do, and knowing that God got you. At the end of the day, sometimes God just wants us to step out. And so it reminded me of the children of Israel when they passed the Jordan River. Now, God said that He was going to open the Jordan River the entire time and let them know that they would cross on dry land to start kind of their wage of Canaan, to make sure that they had the land that they needed, right? And so in this, He didn't do like He had done prior with Moses, where Moses just extended his arms and the river went up, right? With this one, they put the Ark of the Covenant, God's presence, in the front, and it required them to step into a river where they couldn't see the bottom, so to speak, because it was a flooded time, right? You have a number of rivers rushing into one river, and they had to cross in this area where everything met up. And so they had to take the first steps into this situation in order for God then to do what He said He was going to do. And it reminded me so much of this conversation that I was having, that sometimes we have to first start stepping, walking by faith and not by sight. We know that God has said He's going to do a number of things in our lives, and we've got to step to that plate. We got to take those first steps into the proposal, and look at opportunities as growing opportunities to move you into those areas, those arenas that you haven't probably even imagined yet. And so today I just wanted to encourage you all to stop looking at the I can't figure this out when God has called you to something, because God has got you. So remember, 1, give yourself grace. You're not going to know everything off the bat. It's just not going to happen that way. 2, know sometimes you just got to take that first step in moving forward in what God has called you to do. And 3, God got you. If God has given to you, He will perform it into the day of Jesus Christ. Now, just continue to lift Him up and let Him have His way in you. All right? So know that I love you. God loves you even more. And until next time, be inspired, be edified, be encouraged. Put God first in all that you do. Love unconditionally. Do what you love and always live an amp life. Let's get amped. Woo! We'll catch you later.